Hi, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of The Hitstreak. Check it out. I got to give a big shout out to my show sponsor, my friends over at AVLX. I also have to give a big shout out to Charles Henry and Ace Young, the amazing performers and producers of the music behind the show, as well as the amazing people that make up the Hitlab Creative team, who are the producers of the show. Folks, I have a favor to ask. If you like what you hear, and I know you do, click that subscribe button to make sure you get alerted when new episodes are dropped. Thanks for tuning in.
The real success stories told by the people who live them.
We're going to have some guests on this show that everybody knows, and we're going to have guests on this show that nobody knows yet.
One by one, Nick Hyder is adding hits to the hit streak.
Blessings, folks. Welcome back to another episode of The Hit Streak. I'm your man, Nick Hyder, and I got another extra special treat for you with me right here in the Hit Lab today. I have got the founder of the super firm that is based out of St. Louis and right here in Nashville. I've got my man, Jim Gray, in the Hit Lab with me today. What's happening, baby?
Hey, what's going on, man? It's a pleasure to be here, right down here in Nashville.
Well, it's good to have you back. I think it's very important to note that not only are you the founder of your super firm, Gray Artist Services, but you're also the creative team lead right here at Hitlab Creative Studios.
I sure am. I get the pleasure and the blessing of working with all these great folks every day, and you and basically we just agreed that you brought me in because I'm a manager. I brought me in to be your manager, so to speak.
That's right.
And so we're just playing off that, and it's a small world, and we're just taking it one day at a time, one episode at a time, really.
That's right. Well, it has been it's been an amazing experience working with you so far. I was an admirer from afar for a while, and then thank you to my man Josh for hooking us up and getting us together. And I'm looking forward to man. Honestly, man, like what you've been doing for quite some time is very fascinating, and I'm looking to hear more about it myself, as well as educate our amazing listeners, and how that kind of bleeds over into everything that we're doing here at the Hit Lab.
Absolutely. It's all about, I just think 10 years ago when I kind of got into this whole thing, all the things that I've marketed, I think it's somewhere in there was an electronic smoking device of some sort. It was probably somebody here. I think it was a client here in Tennessee, like an agency or something like that. And, but marketed, film, movies, music, causes, apps, all sorts of stuff. And in the end of the day, it didn't really matter to me. Well, it mattered that I could feed those I was responsible for at the time and feed myself and be as happy as I could be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I know family is extremely important and a big piece of your happiness, as well as your friend. I mean, since you've been here, you've been booked nonstop since you got here last week.
Yeah.
You know a lot of folks.
It's, people are like, man, how do you know so many people? I'm like, I don't know if does anybody really know anybody anymore? I think that's a lyric, right? What lyric is that?
Oh, that's a good question.
But it's Howard Jones.
It is Howard Jones. Good call. Dude, hold on a minute. That gets a hit.
Woo! We already getting hits, baby. But I think that I spend a lot of time not only connecting with people online, but my bigger goal. And I'm not extroverted enough to pull this off, but my bigger goal is that I would want to connect with people in person, because it makes a huge difference to your brand and to your cause and things like that. When you take the time and say, hey, can we have a coffee, or can we, and I always say, by the way, I say have a coffee. I never say let's grab a coffee, because grabbing a coffee to me means you're going to go to the counter and grab it and run away.
Okay.
If you have a coffee with somebody, you're going to take the time to sit down with them and hear their story.
My buddy and great mentor, Marcus Whitney, told me one time he hates it when people say, can they pick his brain?
Oh, it's the worst.
He's like, first of all, it's just nasty sounding.
Ugh. Plus, my brain is your brain is really small. I mean, you don't want to have coffee with somebody's brain. It's not really capable of it.
That's true. That's very true.
There's some dad jokes in there somewhere.
Oh, absolutely. Well, they do have two dads on the mic today, so they're going to get some of those. So, all right. Well, tell me a little bit. So, first of all, Gray Artist Services.
Yes.
Seriously, I called it I said it was a super firm because it is. But you provide artist development, artist management, label services to a wide range of folks.
Sure.
Wide range of entertainers.
Yeah, it's been it's a strange mix of humble. It's a strange mix of humility and confidence.
There you go.
You have to be open and transparent and vulnerable, but at the same time, very confident. That's why people come to you.
That's right.
They're coming to you because, you have people coming to you that are very qualified. They've made 25 years plus of music, and they're asking you what they should do. And you're like, I feel like I should be asking you for advice. Mm-hmm. But you're asking me. And really what I've set out to do, Nick, is instead of getting all emotional about things that we don't know, let's build habits.
Bam.
Let's build marketing.
Come on.
So that we know we can anticipate what we're going to do every time. And that gets into your neural pathways. It balances things out, and people get this confidence that they didn't have before about marketing.
That's right. We say it all the time here. Winners anticipate and losers react.
That's right.
Ethan's baseball team, they hear it every time we get together, right?
I
Anticipate
imagine
the next play.
They're like, Dad, please give me a break.
Anticipate the next play. So some of the things, the topics that I had that I wanted to talk to you about besides digital and email marketing, branding habits, management, self-care, and basically like how have those habits changed your life. But before we get there,
Yes.
let's go back. Let's take it back for a little bit. Talk to me about the type of family that you grew up in, because their home life, their childhood has influenced who they are today in their professional life to some degree,
Yes.
right? So let's find out
Absolutely.
how much yours.
Sure. And, I usually started off with this way. My great-great-grandfather, Gray, came from Scotland to New Brunswick, Canada, to Eureka, California during the gold rush in the 1840s. And so I'm a fifth generation far northern Californian. My son's sixth generation Californian. And on my father's side, my great-grandfather, my grandfather, my dad, my uncle, and my brother were all in the logging industry.
Interesting.
Like people have seen that show on whatever channel it is. People, working in logging families and stuff like that. It's hard work. Mm-hmm. And I grew up around my dad's company. He was an independent logger. It's called a JIPO logger, which is kind of a funny term.
Okay.
But he was the guy that would contract out these jobs for these larger companies. Anyway, long story short, it's not that I didn't enjoy the work. The work itself at times was very fulfilling.
Okay.
But I was always creatively minded.
Okay.
In high school, I liked to play sports. I'd like to think that I could play sports.
Well, how creative does a logger need to be?
He doesn't.
Okay.
In fact, my dad made that pretty clear that there wasn't any creativity. I mean, there wasn't a need for creativity in logging.
Sure.
But my will to be creative was so strong from very young.
Okay.
And everything from writing to photography to acting, to all of those things in school that made me happy.
Right.
And I would say that years later, most of my fulfillment now is going back to those things that made me happy all those years ago. And but family is everything. I love my parents. They're so great. I call them once a month. I have 3 adult children.
Yep.
All in their 20s.
That's awesome.
And they're all over the place, and they're the best people in the world. Being on this side of it is beautiful and amazing.
Kids are, I say it all the time, kids are God's greatest gift to
Absolutely.
us, right? Is the children.
Absolutely. Amen.
So, well, tell me a little. So, talk to me about you got grown kids, right? I can learn. I don't. Mine are on the way up.
Right.
One's 12 and one just turned 1. So I'm about halfway through the journey to adulthood on one, depending on what day you ask him.
Yeah, right.
And the 1-year-old that thinks she's already an adult, even though she's just learning to do some basic things. So, what are some of the things? How did being a dad make you a better businessman? First of all.
I would say that I learned a lot about the things that a lot of the ideas and the way that I approach my music business. Being a father of 3 creatives was the best training for that. Listening to them, we would ask all 3 of them. I would say, what are 3 things outside of school, 3 electives that you want to do? And I'll invest in that. I'll drive you, help, buy, cleats or whatever it is. So it could be, soccer, church, and music. And we would do everything in our power to make those 3 things happen. And so it not only helped them develop, but we also helped them make choices.
That's awesome.
And those are skills that they still use to this day.
Absolutely.
Because groups of 3, I mean, it's easy to make a choice.
Sure.
It's like, hey, here's 10 things, but you can only choose 3. Fully invest in those things and fulfill those things and empower you.
Yeah.
But I think that being a parent is very fulfilling on this side. Having relationships with my adult kids is so beautiful and amazing. It's really awesome. I love it.
Well, that's congratulations. First,
I'm just happy they're after some of the things, some of the shenanigans and bad dad jokes, they're still speaking to me. But, and it's funny. I believe in generational dad jokes. Like I would, go see my son at college and he would ask me to tell some of my funny jokes or not things he thought was funny, just things that I thought were and now it's become generational things.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And it's the beauty of that. And there's some of those things that are passed down from my own father to them, but, and that's the beauty of generational thought process is, if you put a lot of time and effort into it, it should go a long way.
Mm-hmm.
The things that we teach our kids and their values and the things that we learned from our parents. You might be listening to this and you might have had a bad or a negative memories in your childhood or something like that. There are things that you can find positive in every situation, regardless of how bad it was. The positive thing might be that there's things you didn't want to do, but there's things you can learn.
That's right.
I didn't have the greatest childhood growing up. It was hard. And there was divorce and alcoholism and a lot of other things there. But God has used that in my life to teach me all about people.
That's right. That's right. It's crazy. We all seem to think that our circumstances are unique. And they are to us, but in the big scheme of things,
yes,
happens all over the place.
Well,
to most,
all those things teach us empathy and compassion for others.
There you go.
Which is huge.
Yes.
It's the biggest, one of the biggest assets I have in business is having empathy and compassion and understanding and listening.
All right. So let's talk about empathy and compassion for a minute, because I believe that there is. So all right. What does empathy and compassion mean, first of all, right?
Yep. So
what does it mean, like when you say empathy and compassion, when you reference those words, what are you saying? I'm actually going to ask my good old buddy Webster here.
Yeah. So I'm gonna let you look it up, but I'm gonna give 2 definitions and let's see how close I am.
Okay. I got empathy here.
One of those is I feel like I should do something, and the other one is I actually do something.
Wow, that's a
that's a hit right there.
That's right. All right, so let's check this out. So because I came up from, especially in the sports world, I came up from the way I got empathy and compassion was I got pushed harder. Mm-hmm. Not coddled, pushed harder. I was always told when your coach stops talking to you, you better worry. Right? When they're riding you like a Shetland pony, it's because they know what's in there, and they're trying to get it out.
I've never ridden a Shetland pony.
You know, I haven't either, but that's just what I've always heard.
We should put on our list of things to do. Our company events is go ride Shetland ponies.
Well, it'll be a podcast then. We're going to mic up.
This is Tennessee, bro. There's got to be some place here we can ride Shetland ponies, man.
So, Fiona, we're going to rent some Shetland ponies, and we're going to shoot a podcast on Shetland ponies.
An whole episode about Shetland ponies and are they rideable?
So that's some great conversation. So, all right, we'll check this out. Let's see how close I am with what I was saying. So, empathy, it's as a noun, it's the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. All right, now, compassion, also a noun, is sympathetic pity and concern for the sufferings or misfortunes of others. All right, so my coaches would say the way I'm showing you compassion by showing concern is telling you to get your butt up,
right,
and go harder.
Go do something.
Go harder.
Yeah.
Go do something. That's right.
Yeah.
So there's two types of it, and the greatest leaders understand what makes somebody tick and knows which version of those two things to play, because I think it's very important a lot of times. So like Brad Lee taught me this one time about, so let me look up another one while we're doing this, Jim. So you had said it the other day or earlier and then changed the word, which is good, but like, so humble gets used a lot like it's a good thing.
Yep.
Well, if you actually look up the definition of humble, it's having or showing a modest or low estimate of one's own importance. So when people say be humble, why in the world would you want to do that?
Well, I think because my company is not about me. Okay, so let me back up.
Yeah.
My company originally was called Graybeard.
Graybeard? That's cool.
Because I moved to Tennessee, and I had a big gray beard, which is getting kind of white now, but it's fine. Don't tell anybody. But don't judge me, people. But I don't want your Yelp reviews. But right? Is that what they do for podcasts? They give you Yelp? No, they give you an iTunes review or something.
Apple
like
Podcast reviews.
Yeah, which
like
we need those, please.
Yes, we do.
Please, we need those.
We love the ones we've gotten, and we need more.
Yeah, whichever camera I'm going to look at right now. But
Bam.
We need those reviews, please. And then let me know on @jimgrayonline that you sent me a review because of something I said on this podcast, our show review. Anyway, where were we?
Where were we?
That's a good question.
This is what it's like to work here.
This happens between you and I a lot. Okay, my original name of my company.
Yep.
It usually comes back. See, I was Graybeard, and the reason that originally I would say. I would say that it's not about me, and I'm good at a very short list of things. I show up, I shut up, I get out of the way. It's not about me. And while that was a great way to build brand folklore, because I moved to Tennessee and literally I knew a few people, but nobody really knew what I did.
Right.
I had to go out and explain that to them. I had to tell them my story, and so I developed Graybeard as kind of like a folklore legend. And then when I decided to relocate from Nashville to St. Louis for some time, I decided to rename my company because it wasn't really about me,
Right.
and Graybeard. It was about the artists that I serve.
Okay.
And so that's where we came up with Gray Artist Services. But it did take a sense of humility,
Sure.
of looking at myself. Not looking down at myself, but just realizing that it really wasn't about me. I'd have to continue to serve others.
So it was either you had to rebrand or shave.
Yes.
And then you would have to go find a client that had a gray beard.
You know?
Then you were limited to only working with gray beards.
Yeah. But listen, I actually renamed. It is funny, though, because I've heard that joke before.
I'm good for a lot of repeats.
Yeah. But there were people that said, well, you own a company called Graybeard, so you can never shave your beard. I'm like, do you not know what a metaphor is? Or do you not understand figurative language or, imagination? And I'd actually renamed the company, and then I shaved off the entire beard and just left the mustache. And
that's actually what you looked like when the first time I met you.
Yeah.
Was just the amazing.
Just a big gunfighter mustache.
That's
right. Which is, it's kind of apropos because I needed a big mustache, a gunfighter mustache for different seasons sometimes.
That's right. That's right. So, going back to those words, because like one day we were having a team sales meeting a couple years ago, and the mindset word. But Bob Proctor and a slew of other people would say refer to paradigms, which is another word for mindset. There's all these things that basically like mindset is. Let's look up the word mindset real quick, right? Mindset. The established set of attitudes held by someone. So we're sitting there and we're in this team training, a few dozen people in there, and we're talking about mindset.
Right.
And as I was studying what everybody was giving, the information they were giving us back, because this is how we get into some marketing stuff. So as I'm sitting there studying what people are talking about when it comes to mindset, and then I'm looking at everybody's faces and the looks on their faces, it just dawned on me. I was like, I don't think we're talking about the same thing. We're just calling it the same word. So I asked every one of them, what do they think mindset means? And there was like 40 different definitions. So that was my wife always told me words matter. That was when I truly figured out words matter. So we looked it up and do what I just did, and we read it.
Yep.
And then I asked the same question over again. And now we were all talking about the same thing.
Yes.
Right. And that's super like important when it does come to marketing. Right. So, just like people said all the time, I was always told, Nick, you should be humble. You should be humble. Well, based on that definition, I should not.
Or you should make sure that you understand how you're framing that up.
That's right.
Because for me, words matter. Just like if I say I want to have coffee with somebody, the things that I say, how I say them and how I phrase them, and sometimes I've had people visit my home and I've said, "Hey, thank you for leaving," and they're like, "Oh," and they laugh because they realize it's a play on words.
Yep.
Because everybody says, "Oh man, thank you so much for coming."
Yep.
And I'm like, no. Honestly, what we should say is thank you for leaving.
That's right.
It's actually kind of how we feel when people are leaving. We're happy that they came, but oh man, would you please leave?
Yep.
But we would never be that honest to somebody unless we knew them really well.
That's right.
And so the words that we say, and they really do matter, how we use them, when we use them.
Yeah.
The tone of voice in which we use them.
Yeah.
It's
just, and it's super like communication. Another thing we say all the time here is I haven't actually fact checked this, but I'm betting a lot on it that you could go back in the history of mankind and look at every single catastrophic thing that happened, not like a God-made event like a tornado or something like that, but like every problem that they had, any human conflict, and not one time will they go back and say, that happened because they communicated too well.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's always a breakdown in communication somewhere.
Yep.
And so when you realize that a lot of the communication is through words, it makes you like start to think about what it is that you're actually saying. And in sports, you're told to do all these things, but like you're trying to do it, but what your body may be doing is something different. Your mind's eye, as they used to call it, is different, right? So and another thing too with words, like I was always told, don't do things, which is the worst thing you can tell somebody. Instead, if you want them to do something different, tell them to do something different. Don't tell them what not to do.
Right.
You didn't solve their problem.
Right. That's asking questions.
Yes.
Right. One of my mentors taught me that when I can't find an answer, it just means I have not come to the right question yet.
Oh.
Take a hit on that. But I also think that what we don't realize is, we talk about social media, right, is that people are like, well, I'm not really a words person. I'm a video person. Well, if you're going to do great video, you have to have captions on it. And guess what? Great video or any type of creative content does require writing. If you're going to actually plan on it, you've got to sit down and type out an outline of what you're going to say.
That's right.
There isn't anything that we touch. There isn't anything. Almost everything that we touch in social media requires some form of copywriting.
Yeah.
So and that takes organization.
Yeah.
So those words compressed into these forms, like they become very powerful.
Imagine if the favorite restaurant you went to, if the chef just winged it every night and he didn't take the time to prepare a menu with words on it and all that. I mean, like everything that you experience, all the great things in life, very few things are just like they wing it off the cuff, bam, bam, bam. There's usually it's a lot of thought that was required to go into that. Just like writing a movie, there's a script and storyboards and all those things. Great content, great digital content. We talked for a long time before we started recording this this episode.
Yeah.
Just getting things, it matters. Words matter.
Yes.
They absolutely matter.
Absolutely.
So, all right. So I want to talk a little bit about some of your book of business, because you work with, like, I've got here that your artists range from rock, pop, jazz, Americana, instrumental. I mean, like, is there anything left?
I haven't done a lot of country music marketing.
Ironically, since you are based out of Nashville, right?
Partially based out of Nashville. The part that's in Nashville, I don't let that be country.
Okay.
I feel there's enough country music marketing going on. Americana is very intriguing to me. There's a ton of folk stuff out there too that I've worked with. There's folk pop. There's folk rap. There's folk hip hop. There's all of this kind of stuff going on, and all of these like little micro genres have popped up now.
Yeah.
But in the end of the day, what really matters is that I come alongside the artist and I walk alongside of them, and we try to achieve the original goal that we set out to do.
Okay.
And that only happens obviously through communication, and it happens through a lot through planning. So I get involved, the earlier I can get involved in a project, the better. And it's one of the reasons why, in the past couple of years, I've started doing more what's called A&R, right? If you look it up, it says the term is artist repertoire.
Okay.
And, but it means like, I basically help them develop the music and everything about it's. My brain tracks the continuity thread throughout the story of a record, and making sure that every part is getting developed. And what I just figured out is that in order for me to market something really well, I've got to be involved as early as possible, which meant that I had to do. I'd eventually would have to do a lot more in the process, and I couldn't be just.
You were there at conception.
Yeah, I couldn't. Yeah, I just couldn't be one thing. I had to be, and unfortunately I'm good at that. I had to grow in some areas and get some counsel on how to do that. But I'm now seeing that come to fruition, and it's beautiful.
So like, it probably would have been helpful with us had you came on during conception instead. We'd brought you on. We had got it to a certain point.
Sure.
See, I thought a different way. I took a different path, which was I'm going to get it to a certain point, and then we're going to bring him in.
Yes. Right.
And so there's, if I could do it again, I probably would have brought you in at conception, honestly.
Yeah, of course. But I also think that there's in lean startup thinking, there's an idea of pivot or persevere, right? You get to the point to where we can't go any further the way things are. We're going to have to pivot, or be like, well, or what we could, if these factors all worked out, and we could persevere and work our way through. And sometimes the best thing you can do, and I tell people this all the time, like, there's more than two options to everything. There's sometimes thousands of options, ones that we don't even know. We haven't had the time to think about.
There you go.
But we often think about the things that are in our situation. That's why bringing somebody in from the outside is helpful. A second set of eyes.
Absolutely. And Pastor Josh said it in church not long ago. He said, "How do you handle your situation?" How do you handle your situation? It was great. It was a great little. It was a great question and a great story to follow.
Yeah,
absolutely. So, are you more on the creative side, or more on the development, operations, business side, or is it a kind of a split between both, or is it artists or client? Every client has its own path.
Yeah, everybody. I call it a. So I use a story about when I first moved to Los Angeles back in the 90s. I'm a California boy. Okay. I think I made that clear earlier. Don't hold that against me, please.
I'll give you one.
Right, thank you. And when I first moved to Los Angeles, there wasn't GPS. There was these books called the Thomas Guide.
Okay.
And they had all of these layers of maps in them, and all these, and so you would go into the page if you wanted to go to Reseda, and you would go and look up Reseda, and it would tell you like basically the coordinates you needed to like get there by using this map. And it was also a great way to get lost too.
Isn't that where Daniel LaRusso was?
That is, yeah. So if you wanted to go to Cobra Kai, you could go right there and Reseda, and maybe we'll get picked up by Netflix, but who knows? But anyway, Johnny, Daniel, all the people are there.
That's right.
But and that's how I found my way around. Well, in my current phase of my company, I have people coming to me at levels that they're, hey, I'm brand new to music, but I've got a record that I wrote, and I need to find a producer. I need to get to this sound. Or, hey, Jim, I've been, doing my own music for X amount of time. I need to find a producer. Or they've already produced their record and they just need, marketing and promotion support. They just need label services.
Gotcha.
So there's all of these. I have the freeway. Mm-hmm. Yes, I own the highway. It's my way or the highway, and it's not. But it's my highway. You're coming onto the on-ramp.
Gotcha.
It's not a perfect analogy, but
it's good though.
When I think about it too much on a live podcast, it's But anyway, but the thing is that they're merging in, and I just have to be ready for whatever happens.
Gotcha.
And it does take quite a bit of. It's on one hand open-mindedness and the ability to listen. On the other hand, it's making decisions and holding everybody accountable.
Okay.
About a year ago, I asked a client, what did she think I was good at? And she says, well, in my mind, you hold everybody accountable to the goals that we set.
Okay.
And so that's a strong piece for me is and also to answer your question about the creative side is really using my relationships, creative, video producers, graphic designers, you name it, to, using all of my different assets that I have of people to make those visions happen.
That's right.
So really, and in some ways operating like an agency, like a super agency. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot of fun. We get to work with some phenomenal people, video animators and graphic designers. And but you have to be, I'd also say that my one thing that I would say to anybody who's thinking about doing this is you have to know your business really well. You have to know how to make money. You have to know how to, you have to have a business model. You have to have a business plan.
Bam, there it is.
You need to have people speaking into your life, because it's difficult and it's lonely. I mean, it's not.
So it's a process and a relationship. You're not only giving them the map and the framework to do it, but you're also walking in the trenches with them side by side, right through that framework.
Absolutely.
On a goal that they came up. Then you've helped them construct the model to get there, right? So works a lot like the GPS does in the car.
It does.
Right? It's awesome.
It does. And a lot of times, even in a marketing campaign, we're using a content calendar that's pretty basic. I mean, it's a Google document.
Yeah.
And we're giving them access to that. And I say, listen, I'm like, you can do a campaign now or a year from now, and it's going to be the same exact process, the same exact cost. Like, I'm even going to tell the same bad jokes.
Yeah.
Because what we're trying to do is give them a sense of security,
right,
through habits. That's right.
And you mentioned accountability a minute ago. Yeah. So, all right. So first of all, I've got I heard something from a person I've never heard of before, but it was sent to me, and she goes by Coach Larissa, right? So here's what she said, and I liked it a lot. It said, "Holding people accountable is uncomfortable. What's worse is having people fail because you won't coach, confront, or correct them. Accountability is something you do for someone, not to someone."
Yes.
And it doesn't feel like that,
right,
at all, and it gets misinterpreted all the time. So, how do you hold somebody accountable that is paying you, and asking you for help, and now you've got to turn around and hold them accountable? It feels totally backwards. It's like they're paying you to get onto them all the time.
Well, yeah. I mean, what I do is I make. Well, I always say, here's what I'm going to do, and here's what you're going to do, and it's my job to make sure that we both do. So if you tell me that, for instance, hey, I want to email this top-selling commercial artist, not to be named on this podcast, that I want to get on, I want to go play or sing on their tour. That's an action item that needs to happen. And chances are that there's going to be some element of fear involved, because that can be intimidating. It's my job to come back and say, hey, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Where are we at with that?
Oh,
well, I don't know if, hey, listen, write something down, write me a rough draft and let me read it. And when I tell people, I'm like, when you write something down and you document it, it takes away the emotional pressure of it. It's a relief valve. Just write me a rough draft of this email. Write it like you're writing it to me. Don't write it like you're writing to that person, and just let it flow and see what happens. Now, they might say no.
Okay.
But sometimes, I'll say to people, like, sometimes you got to do something multiple times to get somebody's attention.
Right.
If anything, this is all an exercise.
Absolutely.
In soccer, we used to say that a perfect game is just a perfect practice.
Okay.
And in a lot of ways, in music, it's the same thing. A perfect, and don't quote me on this, but I'm making this up as I go. But it's a perfect performance is a perfect practice in some ways.
Well, it's true or false. A lot of folks when they bring you on, to create that accountability, like we have an amazing client here at the Hitlab that you had to do just that. You had to reach out to that person because we couldn't do for them what they paid us to do because they haven't done their part.
Yeah.
And you called them and was like, hey man, like we could totally just take your money, but like we would love to do what we said we were going to do for you throughout this process, right? And they were very apologetic and whatnot, but that was not most people would have not be comfortable having that conversation.
Well, it was more like I approached it from the standpoint of, hey man, I just wanted to call you because all this text messaging is great, and then a lot of times in text messaging we lose some of the but we lose some of the value.
100%
of that one conversation, one quick phone call can like break through a whole bunch of things.
Absolutely,
and especially somebody who's busy, and just say, hey, listen, I'm concerned that you're paying for this and haven't gotten all the value yet, and what can I do? I'm here to make sure that this happens. And that's why I'm calling. And because I know that you saw my text message because they had read receipts on. Mm-hmm. And he's like, oh man, you got me, and it ended up being a really fun conversation.
That's right.
And I also think that in our heads that we overthink those kind of things.
Absolutely.
This whole, we have a whole culture of negativity and overthinking that we'll work things out in our head. But if you wrote that down on paper, chances are, you'd be like, oh, that's way out there. Mm-hmm. There's no way.
That's right.
Or if you went and just told your spouse or somebody else like what you were thinking, they'd be like, oh, you're way off base with that.
Sure. Well, it's accountability is without it, nothing gets done.
Yep.
Right. But it's not always comfortable. You have a gift in the art of the delivery is extremely well. That's something I'm always working on to get better at because I'm just pretty honest. I'm really, really honest to a fault sometimes.
Trying to finish things, and we say that here at Hitlab a lot. We say that on the creative team, we say, it's not about perfection, it's about completion.
Yeah.
But I think also if we do our homework. So way before I start with somebody, I give them a marketing survey or an artist development survey, and I ask them 5 questions. Fiona knows because she's had these questions. Mm-hmm. The producer of the show, she's had these questions. There's 5 questions I ask every potential client, and it's, where are you thriving? Where are you struggling? What's confusing? What's missing? And what's next? Out of those 5...
Give me those again. This is good. That's good. We flew through those. Number 1.
Where are you thriving?
Thriving, got
right?
it.
Like, what's the big win for you right now? Where are you struggling, right? Like, what's like, really keeping you up at night?
Yep.
Where are you thriving? Where are you struggling? What's confusing, right? What's missing? Like just something you just don't have it. And what's next? And out of that diagnostic, in the survey that I give them, I just have a Google form.
I like it
on my Instagram for Gray Artist Services, and I
like it.
You can fill that out, and it's got I think 30 some odd questions on there, and because I just want to know, because a lot of times I'm taking a deep dive into somebody's music career without knowing a whole lot about them.
Right.
This survey gives me some basic background of like, have you ever done any marketing? Have you have you ever played guitar to the full moon or something? That's not on there. But, or have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?
Only on Friday.
Right. Only on Fridays before 6 p.m. standard time. But also, but I think that asking those diagnostics, like you're trying to get a quick glimpse into somebody's thought process about how they approach their art.
Do you think that when on the accountability process, a lot of times people don't get it done because maybe they misunderstood or underestimated the amount of effort or time that's going to go into, like, so for instance, dude, having the reason the Hitlab Creative Studios exists is because when I finally started a podcast, I realized I looked up and I had a whole team helping me because it was to do it right, to do it the way we do it.
Yeah. With
top-notch production, distribution, social media, the whole nine.
Yeah.
It took a whole team to do it. And we had a freaking 3-4 hour meeting today just on marketing and distribution and stuff.
Yes.
Like, do you think, I think that's a lot of times people they commit to something that they truly didn't know what they commit to. And for whatever reason, a lot of people just kind of will turn their backs and ignore it or instead of owning it. But like, do you think that's the case a lot with some of your clients? Like maybe they just they underestimated the time?
Yeah. I mean, it's also, I think we've made marketing way too mysterious than what it really is.
Oh, hell yeah.
That's quotable right there.
That's right. Trademark it.
But I think that, a book that I love, there's an author named, everybody in Nashville knows Donald Miller, the name, right? And he has this book called Marketing Made Simple and Business Made Simple and things like that. And for me, I wanted to make music marketing simple and music process simple because most of the folks that I'm working with, a lot of the folks I'm working with are, they're independent for now and they're paying for their own process. They're paying for their own songs to be produced. They're paying to get discovered. They're paying for everything. And what I wanted to do was find a way to walk alongside of them and for me also to get paid, but also to help them and walk alongside of them. In order to do that, I had to think through, all the steps and all the process that I was going to offer them. And it definitely took some trial and error, but I've seen the fruit of that.
I don't know if our listeners understand the gift that you gave them a moment ago. So we have a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, folks like that hang with us on a weekly basis. And I say it all the time, they're the best. We have the best followers, the best audience on the planet, right? Yeah. Hands down. But you gave them, so like all you entrepreneurs that are having team meetings, staff meetings, all those things, like that's your whole meeting template right there. Question number 1, where are you thriving? Yes. Question number 2, where are you struggling? Question number 3, what's confusing you? Question number 4, what's missing? Question number 5, then what's next?
Like if you just took those.
Yeah.
I mean, you could take those into your family, your company, your baseball team, your band.
You're hitting for the cycle today, Jim.
Your marriage. I mean, and then there are some people, it's funny when they meet me and then they get my questionnaire and then they come to some of my monthly business meetings. Because that's really what I'm doing is I'm just saying, hey, guess what? We're going to have a meeting once a month. And it's a music business meeting. And I'll say, have you ever had a music business meeting? And they're like, no, what do we talk about? I'm like, music business. Like your music business deserves it. You spent so much time developing the act. It deserves the dignity of having its own meeting.
Absolutely.
And guess what? You're not only going to do that meeting, but you're going to pay me to be on your meeting to coach and advise and for accountability. And I've seen the beauty of it because there's a certain amount of confidence that happens that I've seen after a certain amount of meetings. And I mean, honestly, when I started all that, there was so much of it that was experimental.
Well, dude, there's so much to validation.
Yes.
And especially if that person is an expert and accredited, their validation is everything. Just like my son don't know if I'm truly the hero that he thinks I am. It's just based off what he knows, right? So when I validate something he's doing, just like when my parents validate what I'm doing, at the end of the day, that's now that I've grown up and married, now I want my wife to validate what I'm doing. I want to make them proud.
Yes.
I want to make them proud. And, a lot of times people have to seek professionals in that space to find that. And I would say you do a hell of a job with it, brother.
Appreciate that. I think the one thing that I had to learn, Nick, is that there's a fine line. I had to learn to set boundaries for myself to mature as a leader, meaning that I wanted to be friends. I had this dream of being friends with my clients, and we're going to do all these great things together. But then when I was doing business with friends and then the business part ended, it felt like we weren't friends anymore.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And I've had a lot of conversations with some friends, with some mentors about that, because I had to break away from that. I had to separate my personal life from my professional life, because it just wasn't healthy.
That's right.
And that's also, I work in a business where, some days I get 21 phone calls and I get as many texts, or sometimes double, and sorting through all that, like that's, having a growing, thriving thing does not mean that it's easy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If it's easy and you're comfortable, you ain't growing. It's impossible.
Yes.
It is impossible. So, you are a creature of, obviously, working with all of these artists. You're being able to succeed is required of you to be diligent with your time. Yes. and disciplined with your time. Who gets what spent with it, and everything else. And so you've created a lot of habits.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
To help facilitate.
Yes.
That discipline. Right. So how have habits changed your life and your work?
Yeah. Well, I think that in the work ethic that I was brought up with, there was never, my dad didn't sit around and go, with all the other loggers and go, hey guys, we're going to have a whole self-care day tomorrow. So why don't you guys go ahead and, schedule the day off, take a PTO day, and let's have a self-care day. I don't know what lumberjack self-care day looks like. I have no idea. Because I don't know if they change your clothing or what. I don't know this, but that was always, but now as an adult, the hours sometimes that I work, I take time every morning to walk.
Okay.
And originally I started walking 1 mile. I was living in East Nashville, and I just walk a mile and back. And it was like during the pandemic, I had nothing but time to walk. And so I started off walking it a mile. And then I remember my business was growing about a year ago, and I had some things happen. And one day I went out and I walked 2 miles. I was like, wow, that felt great. Mm-hmm. And then now sometimes, depending on the day and the time that I have, I'll walk up to 3 miles, sometimes 5, depending on how much time I have. I'll do phone calls while walking. But that walking gives me, it releases my creative brain. I'm an Enneagram 4 with a 3 wing, so I'm a natural creative, and I've got a lot going on in my brain. That walking helps like stabilize me every day. And actually, I put my habits into my calendar. Mm-hmm. So my first thing that I have on my calendar every day is prayer. That's really important to me, is have that conversation with God.
Thank you.
And then writing. I write every day. I try to do at least 20 minutes of writing. Morning pages is a great tool. It's
a great way to populate a book too.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And there's all sorts of ideas and things in there.
I need to do that.
Yeah, writing every day. There's a great book. And it's funny, I can't think of her name right now, but it'll come to me probably later. But it's Morning Pages. If you Google Morning Pages, her name will pop up, and she's on Instagram.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, why don't you look that up? Because I didn't pull out my phone just now. But
I did. I knew I was going to need it today.
But
Morning Pages.
It is. It's really helped me process and think, because it's like having a conversation with somebody. It's like you're writing a letter to yourself, and it's your own thoughts, and she encourages you to wake up and write what's on top of your mind right when you wake up, even before coffee. It's hard for me to write without coffee. But anyway, walking, pages. I make my bed every day, because no matter what kind of day I've had, I want to go back to a good bed.
Absolutely.
And also, that's another pandemic habit that I developed out of all the pandemic habits. The good ones and the bad ones. But so walking, writing, making the bed, prayer, and then feeding myself. Like how many people work really hard and they skip meals in the morning? So if I have time, I'll make myself a coffee and a smoothie, a homemade smoothie, and then get cleaned up because I work from home every day. Get cleaned up, take a shower,
put on that uniform,
put on some nice clothes, put on your. I wear a tracksuit most days in the winter, an Adidas tracksuit. But all these habits are all actually a self-care routine in the morning that give me time and space to get prepared to do what I do best to serve my clients.
Dude, Olympic gold medalists, the best athletes on the planet, have a pregame routine in which they get ready to flip that switch on to go.
Yes. I have clients who text me, friends who text me and said, it's a beautiful day today, thinking about you out on your walk today. Like they know that I walk.
That's
every
cool.
day.
That's cool.
It's part of my core.
That's very cool. That is very cool. Well, and anything else, like just, can you have a problem from good habits? Can problems arise from good habits? That's almost a trick question.
That's a good question. I think I'd almost want to,
I don't know if the internet will give me that one.
I don't know. I'm almost afraid to Google that.
Is it show my age when I refer to it as the internet? Because now kids just know it as Wi-Fi.
Well, at least you don't say www.
I don't.
So I heard somebody the other day say, oh, go to www. And I'm like, you haven't had to say that in
That's right.
I don't know, 5 years maybe. And they took all that away.
The kids are always like, we need Wi-Fi. We need Wi-Fi. No, you need internet, bro. Wi-Fi is just an extension of the internet, right? But it's like, I think I showed my age. So maybe that part gets deleted out. I don't know. I doubt it. We don't do that either. So we'll give it a hit instead.
Yeah.
We'll give it a hit instead. Well, no, the habits are, what the habits do is they also build momentum.
Yes.
Right. So Brad Lee, who I don't know if he knows how much of an influence he's had on so many folks, including myself, even from a distance. And one of my favorite things that he does is he reinforces the $1 Million Month that we do all the time from the Earl Nightingale exercise, which is where you write 10 of the basic things, most basic goals you can do on a card, do them every day for 30 days. And if you fail, rip them up, start over on day one. It was card 16 that famously my wife and I realized that, we're actually the problems. It's not everybody else that we're blaming. We're the problem because we're not able to do one. We didn't know how to set goals that were even sort of in line with the task at hand, what needed to be done.
Yeah.
And then two, we couldn't do 10 of the simplest things on the planet. Right, that we could think of every single day was always a reason why we didn't get them done. And in sports, we were always taught winning is a habit, so is losing. Teams that expect to win usually win more than they don't.
Yep.
And teams that expect to lose, and that's all from habits, from momentum.
Yes.
Right. So Brad Lee, going back to what he says, he's like, you got to get up every day and do 10 of the simplest things you can do. He's like, first thing you need to do is be grateful. Start your day off on the right foot.
Yes.
And then he's like, but when you're doing those little bitty teeny goals, even though in the big scheme of life they may be relevant, they're turning you into a winner. You're convincing yourself one little task at a time that you're a winner because you're winning. You did what you said you were going to do.
Oh man, I'll just say that a friend of mine who's my advisor and mentor. And if he's listening to this, he knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Everybody's listening to this.
Everybody's listening right now. Or they should be, they will be. But I had to change my business. I had to make some changes in my business when I moved to Missouri. And I needed to, I got challenged to, I got paid from clients a certain way.
Yeah.
There's a certain app. And then I needed to move that into a business bank account and then move it into something else. And then I needed to move my own personal finances out of one bank to the other because that old bank was tied to things in my past that it's almost like I had emotional connection to it.
Absolutely.
Negative things.
Absolutely.
And so it was important for me to go get that new bank account. Well, you'd think that it was like going to the dentist. But now that I've done those things and now I'm paying myself as an employee twice a month out of that business account, and then things are flowing and things are healthy. But and I've also a really great book for anybody who's in any business. I highly recommend Mel Robbins' the 5-second rule.
Dude, we were talking about that earlier today. It's
the
fantastic.
hesitation. The biggest thing that helped me was when I was procrastinating about something, figuring out the why and using her whole process to work through that, asking the questions and taking a minute, going, she says, go do some sort of work real quick and then come back and count down, and it makes this breakthrough. And it's one of the best, very practical, business books that it's self-help, but it's brilliant. It's so simple.
There was people ask me all the time for book recommendations.
Yeah.
And for, I actually was not a reader for fun ever. It was always required.
Yeah.
Until I was actually seeking knowledge on my own. That was when I enjoyed reading, because that was when I got it, right? So I'm going to give you my top 6 right now, since you just mentioned the 5-second rule, because
yes.
Let's see here in the, all right, so I wrote them down to make sure I had all 6. So these are the ones that people asked me a lot, and these are the ones I gave out earlier today. So, and this is in no order. They were actually, the order is in which the size of the hardbacks, so they stack neatly on my desk, right? So the first one was Brad Lee's Things I Learned the Hard Way, right? So the hard way. It's a great one. Second one was Mel Robbins' 5-second rule. The third one was my man Marcus Whitney's Create and Orchestrate. It's phenomenal. The fourth one was a previous guest and amazing human being, veteran, Cameron Harmon's Caveman to Philosopher. Loved that one a lot too. That was a really easy short read. Then the other one was Earl Nightingale's The Strangest Secret, where I got the $1 Million Month. And then obviously Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Man, I love that list. I recently reread. Well, I listened to the audiobook first, but I read the physical version recently. Matthew McConaughey's Green Lights.
Oh hell, yeah, that's good.
Very insightful.
He's a really cool, good thinker.
Yeah, like I was surprised. No, I don't know if I was surprised, but like he's as quirky as you think he is.
Yeah.
But he's okay with it. But he's like very self-aware. And
Yes.
I love the journeys that he went on.
Yeah, self-aware.
I love the whole story about him and his dog living in a van or an SUV or whatever, and then getting a trailer and towing behind it and going and having all these adventures in the wide open space.
What does it mean to be self-aware? Because that's you just nailed it, bro.
Yep.
Like, people are not. They're just not. People that don't take ownership in their life are not aware of a lot.
A couple of years ago, I'd gone through some very stressful things in relationships, and it was just a big mix of things, and it all kind of compounded into one day in particular. I remember calling my friend, who's a psychologist, and we met for coffee, and he drew me this chart, and on the left side, he says he drew some squares, and on the left side he drew self-awareness and self-management. He says, in order to you have to know yourself, who you are, and you know how to manage yourself. And then on the other side of the box, he wrote others awareness and others management. But in order to we all think that we can help others first, but we have to help ourselves first. We have to be self-aware, self-awareness, self-management, and then we can start having others awareness and others management, which leads to decision making regarding ourselves and others and the future.
Yeah.
And also when we think about others, that's where empathy and compassion comes into play, because we've been through our own journey, our own story, and we have understanding for the others. And so I worked on those pieces first.
The example of self-awareness in the from old Webster.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna have to pay
Good
Webster.
old Webster.
He's killing it today. He says conscious knowledge of one's own character, feelings, motives, and desires. The example would be the process can be painful, but it leads to greater self-awareness.
Yeah, I'm a big fan these days of an idea. I was on a walk, not surprisingly, a few weeks ago, and I got this idea that true breakthrough comes through buildup. It comes through tension. It does not come through ease.
No.
It comes through the discovery through tension. And sometimes I think that's a little, in our Western mindset, sometimes that takes a little bit longer than what we're comfortable with.
Absolutely. So obviously, great business. You have a great business. and it's been great for a while. So you weren't looking for a gig to work with us. You were, but so when we came at you, it was like we had to partner up. It was that was what had to happen, right?
Sure.
So to work with, because that's the only people I want to work with are people like you. I'm not looking. My dad always said if he was the worst person in the band, he had a good ass band.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I'm trying to surround myself with people that are better at certain things than I am, because that in turn I grow with them, right? Makes me better. So talk to me about your experience here with us. You've been with us for about to be going in our third month.
Yeah.
Right. And we've accomplished a whole lot. A whole lot, but I feel like we're really just getting started.
Sure.
So, what's the experience been like so far? And then I want to know too, through all this, I've become a huge believer, obviously, in podcasts and digital marketing.
Yeah.
And how podcasts are an unbelievable and such a reliable source for amazing content. For your digital marketing and such, and a great way to network and hang and do all kinds of stuff. So talk to me about your experience with us so far, because we do have an amazing freaking team.
Oh, it's amazing. And I think that, I was brought in at the right time, and it was kind of funny because I remember, you introduced me to the team and say, hey, this is Jim. He's kind of a hired gun, which is in the business is a big compliment, and it's been super fun. I think that I had to come in and make some quick assessments about where we are isn't going to be necessarily where we may not be where we want to be, but we have to make some quick assessments about like, where are we located right now?
Yeah.
And how do we get to where we want to go? And it's important to know,
because there's not many companies that do what we do.
No, I mean, this is very unique. And so the word scalability comes into mind, and knowing things like asking basic questions like, what's our scope? What's our schedule? What's our budget? What's our time frame? All the basic things like customer service, like when we get somebody wants to come in and rent the podcast studio, how do we engage with them?
Yeah.
How do we remind them about things? And just asking some of the basic questions. I could jump into that and appear to be, almost wizard-like in the beginning because I knew what the holes were.
Yeah.
Because you guys told me that.
Yep.
Now, if you come in and you jump into something like this and somebody hasn't been authentic with you about where the gaps are, and you discover those, you might be like, ooh, yeah, hey guys, great to know you. But so far everybody's been like really, quick to learn, and we've been able to acclimate, and it's been super fun. There's also, we get to market things online and
oh my god, so much fun,
and film things and have a podcast studio. Like the fact that
this is a playground.
I'm laughing that I'm getting paid right now to have this much fun. It's a ridiculous amount of fun, but I think that it's such a rich way to tell stories and to engage with other people, and it's so close to Nashville, where we're located, and the proximity of it. So I think that
wait till you see what we're building. Oh my god!
Oh yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yes.
But through marketing, marketing comes in a lot of different forms. For me, it's everything. Everybody thinks marketing and they think social media, but for me, I think about best practices. So for me, best practices to market things would be everything from social media, video. Storytelling through copy, storytelling through, how do we...
You're great at email marketing.
Email marketing.
You're great at text and email marketing.
Right.
You're obviously through A&R, you're good at all the PR.
Yeah.
There's a lot of letters in there.
PR is hard. And I don't know.
But you understand a good relationship.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. You know exactly who's good at it, where to send them, and all that kind of stuff.
Right. And so I think that sometimes
you understand what it does.
Yeah, all the best things, and we still have a lot of things to build and to grow into, and we're going to get there pretty quickly. But figuring out. But again, I had to come in and assess where are we located, where do we want to be, and then how do we best tell that story, almost like I did with the Graybeard, and how do we get us to that next level?
Yeah.
because, end of the day, like all those things, they don't come easy and they don't come free. So we have to figure out the best ways to get there. And then quite frankly, I had to come into doing a brand assessment of your own, the Nick Hyder brand, and figure out, is that of the best health that I want it to be, like at its highest level. And so it's like, hey, do we need a photo shoot? And do we need, what are the things, if this was a band or you're an artist coming to me, which I am your manager, by the way.
That's right.
And I need to, I owe it to the team to sit and say, what does the Hitstreak need to make it greater than what it already is? And then what do we need to do to market Hitlab Creative Studios to get that story out there? So there's almost like a multi-tiered approach there.
That's right.
And so that's where we're having a lot of music clients. It does help. It helps the thought process.
Absolutely.
It doesn't help with the time
right
of availability
sure
between the two. But so far it's been super fun, and I feel like I was ready for the challenge. And there's no greater compliment than when a client refers you to something that they're building. Yeah. Our mutual friend Josh had told me about this thing, and told me people's names and all this, and I don't know what this is. And when the day he texted me, I thought, what is he talking about? But it's been really fun, and it's nice to see a plan coming together.
Absolutely. Well, the team, which started out so small and is growing like crazy, I started a podcast, built studio, started a podcast, and before I knew it, I had a team, right? And then all of a sudden people started calling saying, hey, what you're doing is really good. Like, how'd you do it? Yep. And who did it for you? Right? So it was like, well, we kind of did it in-house. How we did it is through a lot of trial and error and a lot of research and a lot of time and sweat until we got something that we were proud of, and we got it out there. It took me 1.5 years just to get my podcast off the ground, because for a lot of reasons, as we've mentioned before. But like, every time we get good with what it is that the team and us want to do, we see the next thing that we want to accomplish. There's always more. Yeah. And when you take on more virtual real estate, I guess, for lack of better words, it requires more time, more staff, more tools, more everything. Yeah. And that's the hardest part of growing, is it's not comfortable. If it was, they wouldn't call them growing pains. So but it's a good pain. My dad's buddy, I'm gonna give him a shout out, Rick Fox, and Rick was always great, because I remember they were like second parents to me. And growing up, I got braces, and he made a statement I'll never forget. He was like, getting braces was kind of like, he was like, for me, it was kind of like a good pain. Like, I didn't like it, but like it kind of like I got something out of it. And that's kind of like for growing a business, what it is for me, is it's painful, but I enjoy what we're going through, because what's on the other side is so rewarding.
Yeah, I think that mindset. I moved to St. Louis because I had goals of, I wanted to live alone. And I've told you, and I've told other people this, but I had a goal. I wanted to live alone for at least a year, to know what it was like to feel loneliness, and to to really know myself really well. And then the other thing is I wanted to be completely debt free. And I've done some crazy things like sell my car and move and be very focused. But what I've seen, and I've done, strategic Saturdays, I've worked, long days and things like that, but I'm starting to see the fruit of that, and it's really beautiful. But man, the tension, I didn't appreciate it. Sure. I was not a fan. And I whined, and there's friends of mine that know how much I've whined about it. And I stopped whining at one point. And I just decided one day, I was like, you know what? Yeah. No more whining.
Been there, yeah.
And I have friends who've reminded me at times of like, hey, you need to get out of your own head sometimes too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like we can be our own worst enemy.
Absolutely.
And fortunately for me, God has given me and a great community that says things like, have you taken a walk today?
That's right.
Because there's days where I wake up, I'm doing Hitlab hours early that day, because I've got other things going on. Even the master habitual guy gets off of his habits sometimes. Things get upside down. And no one's perfect.
No, and nobody's undefeated.
No.
Nobody's undefeated. Our very own Dale the Supermill says it all the time. When I get frustrated, it's usually just because I want to go faster than we're going.
Yes.
And he said it, I think this was last week, I was griping or not happy with something or somebody or whatever it was. And he just looked at me and said, Nick, if something made me, if I lost as much sleep over something as you are over this, I'd have to eliminate that from my life. And I was like, that's a great, that's a great perspective. Very simple, but it's just like, I allowed it. I have total control over what I give my attention and what I let affect me. Right. And so I caught myself doing something opposite of what I preach every single day, again, because I'm not perfect. And that was, I was letting circumstances get to me and I wasn't accepting responsibility. Even though somebody else had messed up, it's my fault. Because if I'd have done my job better, maybe they would have did their job better. And it's super hard. Super hard to do that. And that's what he's saying. Like, if you just eliminate those things, that's how one of the ways you can take, is that really worth what you're trying to get out of it?
Well, sometimes we have to know the difference between what to talk to our business coach about.
Yeah.
Or our mentor, and the things to talk to our psychologist therapist about. And for me, there were things like sleep patterns. Sleep was affecting my work. And so now my therapist and I have worked through, sleep hygiene, where I've even put in dark curtains in my bedroom. I go to bed at a certain time. I get up at a certain time. But when I get off of new habits, evening habits now.
That's right.
Melatonin. Oh, it's beautiful, baby. I want a melatonin sponsor, please. But when I get outside of those habits that I've worked so hard to build, and it's like traveling for work.
Yeah. And
you're staying in someone else's house. There might be pets, there might be whatever, and you get off of those patterns, it affects it affects everything.
Yeah.
And so, in a couple of days, I'm going to go back home to St. Louis, and I'm going to put all my stuff away. I'm going to do all my laundry, do all that, and I'm going to go for a nice walk in the neighborhood.
Yep.
And because I know that that I can go back to that, and I go back to my rest patterns, and I can go back and just, wind back in.
Yeah.
And I would say too that the work I do takes a degree of focus that I've learned to appreciate and protect.
So let me ask you about that focus part.
Yeah.
When I was as a professional baseball player, I was always the guy that was doing all the crazy pranks on everybody, on all the teammates. Right. Like, you know what I'm saying? Almost to a fault, literally to a fault. I was always the one that was.
That's very revealing about you.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know. That's actually very comical in some ways.
And now I'm the total opposite. I'm super intense. But here's why. Like, for me, I've learned the way that I learn. I've learned the way that I operate, and I forget. Like, I have a really hard time keeping up with where I'm at in the process of the journey of a task or something like that. So, like, it's really hard for me once I start saying something or having a conversation. I can't have a side conversation and come back to it. It's really difficult for me to do that. So what I end up doing is just kind of spearheading my way back in to finish what I'm done. And then I'm ready to have a good time.
Right.
But I'd missed the moment. I really struggle with that from time to time.
Yeah, I think that awareness of the moment.
Because it's not good. There's a better way to do it.
Being present.
Yes. Living in the present.
Yes, staying present and staying active, and I think giving ourselves some grace and starting over every day is the greatest gift we can give. Like, knowing that, like, hey, I'm gonna wait. I did the best I could today.
That's right.
I've had to learn to make quicker assessments. I was kind of slow.
Because the rearview mirror is this big, the windshield's this big, but a lot of times we focus on the little one.
Yeah, and the things that we beat ourselves up for, there's no need for that. Like I was traveling this week, and I had strange feelings coming to me that were old 4-year-old feelings, and I knew exactly where they were and what they were related to. And I literally had to tell myself, things are so different now.
Yeah.
Financially, they're different. Socially, everything's different.
That's right.
You just have to see that through. And the human mind is, I've learned to really respect the wiring and the rewiring. We have to understand that sometimes if we don't undo, or we don't tear out the old wire and rewire.
That's right.
And the Bible talks about old and new wineskins. Mm-hmm. And you think about drinking wine out of an old wineskin, or drinking something out of a dirty glass, but it's like going back and like rewiring things in our brain. It takes time.
That's right. So talking about rewiring things, so the world of podcasts,
yes,
is still pretty new. It's been around for years, but it's just since pandemic is when it really took a leap, at least from my perspective.
Yes,
right. And now everybody knows I believe in them. I believe in them 100%.
Hence this room.
That's right.
The studio.
That's right. And what do we do? So, but I mean, podcasts are for everybody. Obviously, is that how you could argue that maybe if you're a startup and new and you've got, and depending on how your business is marketed the best way, maybe that's not the best use of your time in the beginning. I know that we don't particularly work with a lot of startups. Most of the people that we work with are tenured, seasoned businesses, business owners, and this is like the next step for them. For me, it was networking, it was content, it was being a source for content, it was all that stuff. It was reintroducing me and who I am to the world with friends.
Well, I think that there's it's not so much starting with a podcast as it is, there's 3 questions.
Okay, let's go.
Who are you as a brand, right? Who is your audience, and what is your message, or what are your messages or themes that would relate to those people that you're trying to speak to? And then you create your story. And that's what I do in a lot of times in music. Is when I started off with an artist I just started working with, we do a brand, kind of a brand identity, or a band identity, if you will, and just say who is this artist?
Yeah, the brand DNA.
Yeah, and then who is your audience? Who do you think they are now, and who do you think could be? And then what's some of the messages or the key themes that you might touch on in your songwriting? Well, in the same way with podcasting, who are you as a brand? Hey, we're boots. Like, hey, I like my boots. These are my Chelsea boots. We're a Chelsea boot company. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm a Chelsea boot fan. I want to know more about how you guys make your cool boots and what are some of the stories involved. And maybe,
that's right.
So you could always say, like, yeah, we're a boot brand, and our potential audience are people in the music business that like boots. Hey, guess what? If you got a pair of cool boots, I wear 10.5, by the way. I'm going to stop.
No, we'll give them your physical address. So
right. Just have it send it here to Hitlab.
There you go.
But, so who's your audience? Who's your brand? Who's your audience? What are some of the messages or the stories, and how would you engage with them is almost more important than naming your podcast.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what are, again, we have a waiting list for taking clients here, and that's kind of on purpose because we're very strategic in while we're building out all of our new space.
Yeah.
We have I wouldn't say limited capacity, but it's good enough to create some awesome demand.
Yes.
What's some of what are you most excited about with what we're going to be doing here as far as development, things we're going to be rolling out? I mean, just like the real estate agent, Todd, that his podcast is going to be launching here soon. Just the animations and stuff.
Yeah.
When it came back and you saw everything come together at the end of it.
I think all the stories that I'm already feeling and seeing, even through Todd's new podcast, like working with Todd, and then all the people that Todd wants to introduce us to, and
the storytelling,
and all the connections that we're going to make that we can't see yet. All the people that are going to be in this chair, in this club chair across from you, all the people that we're vetting and all the stories and businesses impacted, and I think there's a lot that we can't see, and then people that are going to want to rent this room, to record as a studio. I think it's super exciting for me. I love history and I love legacy, and I think that capturing verbal stories is very powerful.
Yeah.
We've done it for years around I love fire pits. I love camping, and I love the whole thought of being outdoors with people and breathing fresh air and telling stories. And this is a really powerful way to do that. That's super organic. And I think we've got some great packages. We've got some great.
Oh my gosh, the team, having a whole team do what they do. First of all, it's cool because I was the first client, right? So because that's how it started, and it's cool. And I got to make sure that that the whole entire creative team. The one thing I can I've always been able to say about them is no matter what, when the chips were down, they showed up. They showed up. They get it done, and it's been this business didn't even exist, did it? So we're literally just we've been making up as we go. So you're gonna run into stuff that you can't see, and all those things. But it's really been, at the end of the day, an amazing experience doing this. We've aired, what episode comes out tomorrow? Is it 25? Is it 26? 26 episodes.
Wow.
One a week.
Wow.
Well, it's half a year. We're doing over 50 of them this year, 52 minimum this year. We're releasing minimum of 2 clips per day, video clips per day, edited with captions, front to back, per platform. Okay? That's before stories or any other posts. It's incredible. It's so much that goes on. And what I can tell you, because we talked about how do you measure the growth and the timelines, and is everything happening fast enough and everything else. And a lot of that has to do with the user and what their business is and everything else. But at my worst, I'm reaching dozens of thousands of people, probably close to 100,000 people per week minimum through all the platforms when you add them all up, if not more.
Not only that, the Spotify video platform itself.
Oh, so big shout out to Fiona.
Yes.
When Spotify came out, they were going to do video first, because before that, all the video was just on YouTube. And which we still are, right? And and it's great, but so she honestly, I still don't know how she got it done, but I know people were getting turned down left and right, and somehow this podcast is featured right there with the big boys, right next to them, where it should be. Dadgummit,
that's right.
On Spotify, where you can watch, you can stream it, listen to it, watch it, the whole nine. Which is super, super cool. So big round of applause for the lovely Fiona for getting that. That was a big deal. That was a very big
win.
Deal.
Big win for the team.
A huge win, and you'd never done anything like that before. And it was, you didn't ask where to start. You just took it and ran with it. And that's what I'm talking about. That's what the team does. And they just get it done. And her and the rest of the crew have freed up hours of me per day from where I used to be the one. I struggle to do one video per day across all platforms and everything. Now we've scaled it, and it's just getting started. Just my audience is growing hand over fist on all platforms just through this. And man, it's so cool getting all the great comments and just when you see how much a clip from today's episode could change somebody's life.
Absolutely,
it's unbelievable.
Absolutely.
It's unbelievable. And you get all that from a podcast.
Yes.
I love it.
It's beautiful.
I love it. Everybody should at least get on our waiting list.
Come on, let's go.
Let's
go,
right.
Nashville.
That's right. And it's they can reserve time and all that stuff as we talk about all the time. But just to make sure that everybody knows, since we're talking about it, right?
Yes.
We have a very sweet little website. we're obviously on social and everything else, but hitlabstudio.com
Yes.
is where they can check out anything they want to know about what we're doing here. They can ask about packages and how to
Yes.
work with us and get on that waiting list.
Let's go.
Get on that waiting list. Well, Jim, what else have we left off today? Because I got so much stuff.
And I think we about covered everything that I could think of. I mean, minus tacos or something like that.
We can do tacos.
Food's important.
It is getting that time. That's becoming a more and more of a deciding factor of when we break.
Right, right. I'm like, Nick, we need to stop because I'm hungry. I'm always hungry, by the way. I always got some snack in my bag or thinking about what my next meal is going to be.
That's right. My wife plans the next meal while we're eating the previous one.
That's right.
I still struggle with that. All right. So, dude, it was, obviously anytime we get to hang with you in town, it's a good time.
Absolutely.
I've been looking for an excuse to get you to sit in that chair over there, which was great, that's the coolest. Again, there's been some amazing folks sit in that chair.
That's right.
There's been folks that they will be seeing more and more of that even sit behind the desk, but and the people that are booked to come sit in that chair,
Yes.
are incredible. Like we're shooting with Andy Elliott.
That's right.
Of the Elliott Group. He's one of the best, probably one of the best sales trainers right now. And he's going to be sitting on that screen because he's in Arizona, but we're going to be working with him on talking to him on Thursday. It's just incredible how the people that we've got coming. Marcus Whitney, who I mentioned his book earlier, all of them are all booked. It's awesome, dude.
Yep. Yeah, that's Fiona and I get to co-produce or act as producers to book the podcast, and it's super fun. Every Wednesday we work on that and working through that list, and it's part of the way that we get to serve the team.
That's right.
And our clients is by getting those bookings for them.
That's right. And so again, folks, if you want to reach a lot of people, you need the team, man. You need the team. Not a team, you need the team.
Yes.
You need the team. So, well, brother, once again, I just love working with you, love hanging.
Yeah, it's a good time.
We've got some stogies in our future.
Yes, we do. Absolutely.
And thanks for hanging with me here on the Hitstreak, bro.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So, well, hey, let's make sure folks can find you just before I forget. That's one of the most important things, right? So, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Jim Gray Online. Is that right? Jim Gray Online?
It's Gray.
Gray.
Yep. Jim Gray Online. You can search for me on the old internets, on the old Googles or where it is you search.
That's right.
And it'll give you more than you want to know, really. But yeah, it's been great. Thanks for having me.
And obviously, the founder of the super firm, Gray Artist Services, and the creative team lead here at Hitlab Creative Studios. Man,
sir.
Thanks again so much for hanging, folks. It's been another amazing episode. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Hitstreak. I am your man, Nick Hyder. God bless.